Welcome. I'm Andrea Hill. I'm CEO of Hill Management Group and the Works brands. And we serve the jewelry industry from mind to market with business and marketing consulting and training and all digital and traditional marketing services. We also work with jewelry businesses on every continent except Antarctica. So I bring a nice broad view of the industry to you. In today's session, let me know if you can see that screen. I'm going to go ahead and pop the slides up now. Are those showing for you? The Jewelry Design Professional Network has invited me to prepare 2 sessions for their membership and the Fashion Institute of Technology. And they graciously opened up these sessions to be free for everyone. So I want to start by thanking JDPN for a very generous contribution to the industry in terms of knowledge. For most of us, the last 2 to 3 weeks, I'm losing track of time, as I imagine you are also, have been a flurry of activity, both trying to figure out how to cope with the dramatic changing conditions and trying to begin to anticipate what life looks like after the COVID-19 crisis. So last week and this week in 2 parts, we're taking a look at the situation. So last week, I took an almost academic baseline of what has been happening in the jewelry industry. Now, JDPN asked me to produce this talk for them before we had a coronavirus crisis. I was going to be presenting it live at FIT in March during the MJSA show. So I was already preparing some information about what was happening in the jewelry industry and what is likely to happen in the jewelry industry going forward. And then it just so happened that everything changed. Well, everything didn't change. There's actually a lot of a very consistent trend line with COVID thrown in. So everybody who's on this call today will get the recording from last week and this week after this session is over. It'll probably go out tomorrow morning. This week, we're going to be taking a look at what you need to know to be successful going forward. And so it's more tactical than last week's session. The combination of the two give you a historical context for what's been going on in the jewelry industry, and then a plan for how you can be more successful. This talk is generally directed at small producers, up to 50 employees, with many studio and producers and designers in the mix because of our target audience, which is JDPN and FIT. But you will find that this information is also extremely useful to people in other parts of the jewelry industry supply chain and also to businesses of different sizes. So let's get going. The first thing, it's funny because when the financial crisis happened in 2007, 8, and 9, I gave a whole series of talks like this to the jewelry industry. You know, what are we going to do? How do we survive this? You know, what happens next? How do I prepare my business? And interestingly, as I produce these talks now for the jewelry industry over the last 2 weeks, a lot of the information is the same. And it's because a lot of the changes that we're facing right now, COVID-19 has only highlighted it. It hasn't created a brand new set of conditions. The crisis has shone a light on a series of things that we really need to be cognizant of. So with the changes that we had experienced, and when you look at last week's talk, or if you were in last week's talk, you know that we've been through 5 major changes in the jewelry industry and in industry in the last 30 years. And with the last couple of changes, which had to do with technology changes beyond the internet in terms of manufacturing technology, shipping and packaging, and also in terms of the internet and how the internet changes the way we shop and buy, that was the beginning of very small producers competing with very large producers. It was possible to compete with big companies, but it's also very possible for big companies to reach much smaller markets than they had targeted in the past. And you're not competing regionally anymore. You are competing with the whole world with companies of every size. And when that change occurred, which occurred over about a 20-year time frame, suddenly it wasn't possible for a small business to only concern itself with making something and selling something. So that's sort of the entrepreneur's dilemma, is that the entrepreneur typically has something they know how to make or acquire, and they sell it. And when all you have to do is make and sell, then you don't have to worry about all of the other pieces. But That's not possible anymore. Now entrepreneurs have to be able to compete on all levels. What that means is you need a series of skills that small business owners didn't have to have before. Now, the good news is it's not impossible for you to acquire, okay? Financial skills, business skills, technology skills, these are not rocket science. And everyone who decides that they're going to pursue these skills is successful. Our biggest problem with learning new skills has to do with our own resistance to learning the new skills. Now, if I had to go become a neurosurgeon tomorrow, I have some doubts about my capability of mastering that skill set. But other than extremely specialized knowledge, most of the things you have to do to be an effective business owner are entirely within your reach. Most of them can be learned by people with a baseline level of education. Much of what they teach in MBA programs isn't actually practiced by people when they get to work. Some of the things they should teach in MBA programs are not taught in MBA programs. So when I tell you that you need these skills, many people are like, oh, financial skills, I'm terrible at math. Why do you think I'm an artist? Or, ooh, business skills, I hate that stuff. I just want to make things. That's resistance. That's not ability talking. And we all have resistance to learning new things on occasion. We either feel overwhelmed with what we already have to know, or we don't feel like we are going to be interested in what we need to learn. Resistance is not the same as inability. So I'm telling you, you need these things: financial skills, business skills, technology skills. You need them whether you are a micro business or whether you employ 3 people or whether you employ 150 people. And you are entirely capable of learning the things you need to learn. The trick is to remember that you don't need to learn them all at once and that you do have resources. And the other thing to remember is that many of these things are much more fun than you may actually imagine. So skills development is the most important thing for right now. It is not going to change. The need for these skills in even very small businesses has been driven by the fact that competition and consumer behavior has changed across the board, and there's just no other way now. So there are 2 areas that I do not consult on in business. I do not consult on accounting, and I do not consult on legal. Those are areas that I believe a credentialed professional should teach you. However, I will give you some basic guidelines here, not the instruction on how to do them, because again, that belongs to the experts. So, and it just makes me think of something that has driven me crazy for years, which is a lot of times when I find out what people are talking about in the jewelry industry, like how to do costing, how to plan cash flow, how to plan your margins, and people say the most outrageously wrong things. Oh, here's a formula for your pricing. We don't use formulas for pricing when we're pricing art. We don't use formulas for pricing in anything other than really strictly driven commodities like gold and oil. But you're not selling gold, are you? You're selling what you make with the gold. Pricing formulas don't belong. So I hear all of these bizarre accounting types of rules that people are taught. And when I try to unwind them and figure out where they came from, well, they've been handed down from one non-accounting person to the next over time. And we have all this bad accounting lore, because it's not even knowledge, in the jewelry industry. So I want you to get good accounting information. And that link at the bottom of your screen, works.me/accounting, is going to take you to a very good training program on accounting for non-accounting professionals. So you don't need to learn how to be an accountant. You need to learn how to handle your accounting as a business owner. And those are 2 very different courseworks in accounting. So write that link down, or you will have these slides later as well. Because you need to have a cash flow plan, and you need to have a budget, and you need to understand the basics of your financials, whether you are a 1-person company or a 200-person company. In addition to having a cash flow plan and a budget, you need 6 months of survival money. Now, a lot of people will say 3 months, but I don't believe 3 months is enough, and I never have. It's funny, when I was in my early 30s, I wasn't 30 yet, I was 29. And I left a job because of a really abusive boss, and I went on a job hunt, and I had 3 months worth of survival money. And I wasn't going to take another job in a company until I found the right fit. And I was looking for a senior executive position, and I started running low on my survival money. And I realized I had to go out and get any job. I didn't care what it was. Well, I'm a really fast typer. So I went and got a job in a typing pool working for the Kelly agency. I actually got the offer to become the president of a large apparel company while I was sitting in the typing pool because 3 months survival money was not enough. Everybody has to have 6 months of survival money, even if you have to go out and do other jobs to figure out how to put that cash aside. But if you are depending on just your job or just your business for money, start building that savings pad up. Put a certain percentage aside of everything you sell. Find other ways to bring in revenue. But if you want to be in a business for the long term, anyone who's sitting on 6 months of survival money right now is feeling pretty comfortable. Anyone who's sitting on 3 months of survival money is at least not in a sheer panic. So that's your survival money guideline. Also, you should not have any more inventory than 1 year old. So if you bought gemstones a year ago, if you bought any base metals a year ago, if you bought any findings a year ago, and you haven't used them, they're old. You need to design them in something new and then sell them. Or you need to design them into something new and then wear them so that when you can leave your houses again, somebody will buy them off you. Or you need to trade them with someone for something you can design and sell, or you need to melt them. But inventory over 1 year old is cash in a drawer that you can't spend. So this is my financial guidelines for you. Learn to do accounting for managers, for non-accounting professionals. You need 6 months survival money. And if you're thinking that's impossible, don't worry about whether or not you have 6 months survival money tomorrow. You need 6 months survival money someday. If you start today, you're going to achieve it faster than if you don't start until a year from now. In terms of inventory, does that include antique and vintage? Yes, it does. So if you buy antique and vintage jewelry anticipating that you're going to sell it and you don't sell it in a year, then you're not buying well relative to your selling strategy. So that no inventory over 1 year old is a tried and true accounting mantra. That once inventory is over a year old, it's actually become worthless because you haven't sold it. It's cash in the drawer. So you need to learn to analyze what you're buying and how and what actually sells once you buy it, and either change your marketing to make sure that you sell the things that you're acquiring, or acquire differently to match the way you're actually marketing and selling. So that's the financial knowledge for today. Let's talk about core values for a minute, because core values are really important to your business. If you have not figured out your core values as a business right now, now is an amazing time to do that work. And your core values include, why have you chosen to be a jeweler or a designer or whatever it is you're doing? And what do you have to continue? How much money do you need to earn? And that looks really different from person to person. How much personal growth do you expect to get out of the work you're doing? What kind of gratification do you need to get out of the work you're doing? You need to develop your pillars. I have my pillars for my work. So it's family, it's ethics and boundaries, like how responsible are the companies I work with? I turn down companies on a regular basis if they don't kind of fit, if they don't fit my boundaries that are clearly drawn, how people treat their employees and partners, my financial requirements, what kind of personal and intellectual development I need to get. And I'm very specific with that in my own personal planning, and fun. Things have to be fun for me. Not everybody makes fun a priority. So like I said, these pillars are very personal to you, but if you don't have those core values nailed down, then you can work really hard and make a lot of money and still not be happy. Or you could end up working really hard doing the wrong things and get on the wrong track. And life is short, so you don't want to spend any time on the wrong track. So working on your core values is really critical work to do now, not just because you have time to do it now, but because if you don't know your values, you can't develop your brand. And if you can't develop your brand, you can't compete. So it's core value time. So what is a strategy? Well, you could spend an awful lot of time in an MBA program and walk out with a really fuzzy idea of strategy. But all MBA programs from every B school are going to teach you this lesson: differentiation plus competitive advantage equals strategy. Differentiation without competitive advantage is insufficient. That means you're different, but if you don't have any advantages to draw on, then anybody else can match your difference and then start competing with you. And then you're stuck with competing on price again. If you have a competitive advantage, but nobody cares about it, then again, what's the point? You don't have a strategy. One thing it's really important for you to understand as a design community is that differentiation on design alone is insufficient. You all know already how difficult it is to differentiate on design. You do need to differentiate on design. If your design looks like everybody else's design, it's going to be very difficult to make a place for yourself in a market that is truly crowded with jewelry. But you can't differentiate on design alone. You also have to have an appeal. You have to have a message. You have to have a people. So these are the questions that will get you to your differentiation and competitive advantage. Who are you? What do you do that makes you different? And why do you matter? Who are you? What do you do that makes you different? And why do you matter? And when we ask the question, why do you matter? It's not why do you matter to the whole wide world. You don't need to matter to the whole wide world. You don't need all the customers. You just need the right customers. So why do you matter to your people? If you can figure out the answers to those three questions, who are you? What do you do that makes you different? And why do you matter to your people? You will have a strategy. And once you have a strategy, you can have a brand. So this is extremely important work to be doing with your time right now. Get really, really clear on this because you're running your business for your people, and that affects your design, your messages, your experiences, the experiences you offer them, and your connections. A lot of times, particularly when I'm talking to retailers, I talk about the problem of all of the sea of sameness jewelry. And I'm regularly talking with retail jewelers about the importance of talking to designers and micro businesses. And in the retail community, there's this weird idea that if somebody hasn't been in business for 2 or 3 and it's not 2 or 3. In the jewelry industry, they really mean 20. If you haven't been around for 20 years, they're afraid to buy from you. And I want everyone to understand just how crazy that is because consumers don't buy the same stuff for 20 years. And anyone who's been designing for 20 years knows just how difficult it is to reinvent yourself. That's why if you've been in business for 20 years, you've seen lots of other designers come and go along the way because it's not easy. But there's a lot of good jewelry from people who are just starting out and they need a chance. So I tell retailers, look at the work. If the work is saleable, if it's well made, if it's well conceived, if it feels good on, if it's at price points that you can sell to your people, don't worry about whether that person is going to be around 5 or 10 years from now. Buy the work and sell it. And if that designer disappears, which in fact, if more people would follow this advice, less designers would disappear. But if that designer disappears, the retailer just says to their customers, I'm sorry, you should have bought it when it was available. That's no longer available. And that scarcity, that risk that a beautiful design could disappear and never be available again is the beating heart of luxury. Jewelry is luxury. Luxury is scarcity. So your design is really, really important to the retail community. And on the flip side, we're trying to get this message across to retailers everywhere. Your business is for your people. So you need to create designs that speak to a certain audience. Well, what is that? I don't know. What are your core values? What is your strategy? What are the things who are you that make you different, that make you matter to your people? That's where your design comes from. Is it message jewelry? Maybe. Is it animals? Maybe. Is it historical referent jewelry? Maybe. I don't know. It's whatever you've defined coming out of your core values and your strategy. So You get to design whatever it is that works for your brand, as long as you do the work of finding your people, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. Um, when you build a brand, you're building relationships. And back when, well, Disney always did it. Disney, as a big brand, built a lot of relationships. The parks have been core to their brand because it gave people a chance to come in direct connection with princesses and talking animals. So Disney understood that just having a big brand without having relationships wasn't going to work. Pepsi, if you think about Pepsi commercials over the years and Coke commercials over the years, those are very big brands. Think about the kinds of commercials that they ran that had the biggest impact. They were always commercials filled with a song, a movement, a connection that helped people build a relationship. Building and keeping relationships is the key to brands. You need to be human. So you want relationships, not promotions. And this is important for now. It's especially important for now, but it's also important for the long term. Another thing on design, just a heads up, there's going to be an upcoming MJSA webinar, and it's about design and style and the materials that designers use and how they change by major world events like World War II and the Great Depression and World War I. I'll be interviewing several design historians, and one of them that's confirmed is Nancy Ross. Hopefully Dana Singer and Michael Cohn will be joining me. I'm waiting for confirmation from them, but we're going to just talk about how the current moment could be affecting design, but you have to interpret that according to your own design language and your people. Anyway, there's the link to sign up for that particular webinar. It is free. It's part of the MJSA webinar series, and it's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern on April 16th. So your brand is all about the designs, the messages, the experiences that you create, and the connections you make with your targeted people. And if you aren't doing the work of figuring out your core values and who you are, what do you do that makes you different, and why do you matter to your people, then you cannot come up with these pieces. So it is time to dig in and do that work. One question that I'm always asked by the design community is, should I do business to business only or business to consumer only, or both? Well, if you sell to less than 50 stores, then you probably need to do both. I say probably because I don't know what the financial answer is in your assessment of what you need to do as a business. So is your financial answer fairly conservative? If you don't need a lot of money to be happy with your business, then maybe you can do less than 50 stores and only sell to stores. So I'm just putting that as sort of a guideline. We've noticed that for designers, until they get over 50 stores, it's hard to live on the income of business to business alone. You can do both. Now, in 1996, when I got to Rio Grande, the first thing I learned was if anybody knew we sold to people who weren't in the jewelry business, we'd lose all our customers. Back then, you could not reach out into the consumer end of the marketplace and survive. And it has all changed since then. So now everybody sells direct and everybody can sell business to business. The trick is you have to be careful how you do it. So if you have some good wholesale clients, some retail stores or boutiques or whoever, you have to protect them with prices. So you need to make sure that you are never underselling that customer. And you have to be really careful with your discount and sales strategies. And what I mean by that is you can go on sale. Some people say designers can never, ever be on sale. That is not true. In fact, if you're never, ever on sale, how do you get rid of the inventory that didn't sell or that you took back in trade for some other inventory for one of your retail clients? Of course, you need to be on sale sometime. Every major clothing designer understands this, but it's a bizarre rule that seems to have taken hold in the jewelry industry. What you cannot do is be on sale all the time. You cannot be on sale with your new work, and you cannot be on sale on a predictable basis. Like if everybody knows you have a sale every May and every September, then everybody stops buying until May and September. It's important if you have wholesale clients that you not be on sale with the new work for a second reason. So you don't want to be on sale with your new work, the work that's in the current collection, because then it trains people to look for sale prices. If you have wholesale accounts, you also can't undersell what they've got in the store. So you can be on sale for things like when you do a product exchange with your wholesale client, you can take back, say you take back 25% of their order and they buy something new. The stuff that you're taking back from your wholesale clients, once nobody else is sitting on it, you can put that on sale. So there can always be sort of a clear out area of your website as long as it's not at any of your retail stores, or as long as it's a part of a collection that you have actually retired. So protect your wholesale clients if you're doing both in those ways, and also protect them regionally. So if you have a fantastic client and they're in Des Moines, Iowa, then you probably need to protect them by not selling direct for a good 50, 60 mile circumference. Now, 50, 60 miles in New York is way too much. You probably just need to protect them for a zip code or two. So depending on where that customer is, that retail store is, you need to protect the geographical area. How do you protect that? Well, one is that some designers have said, I simply don't sell direct to anyone in that area. We send them all to the store. And some designers say, well, I will sell to somebody in that area. I'm going to try and send them to the store. But if they don't want to go to the store, I'm still going to give the store their cut of that sale, even if I sell it directly. You need to have very transparent, practical conversations with your wholesale clients to discuss what's going to work for them and you, and make a policy that you can use across the board. Very, very few retailers will refuse to deal with you on that basis. And if they absolutely refuse to deal with you on that basis, there's a really good chance they're not going to be the kind of partner you want for the kind of back and forth that's necessary for a designer to survive. Finally, your website is essential no matter what you do, no matter whether you're selling just B2B or just B2C or both. You need a website, and you need a website that works. So that's your B2B or B2C question. It isn't a question of should you or shouldn't you do either of them. It's how does that fit with your financial goals and your personal goals, and how, whether or not you can live on one or the other of them. So let's talk about some website basics. Your website needs to be e-commerce enabled. It has to be rich content capable, and that'll make more sense to you when I tell you about this SEO part of this conversation. It needs to be easy to change and update. If you are dependent on some web developer to add content and add pictures for you, you're going to be hamstrung. It's not necessary anymore for you to depend on a developer. And I say that as a person who owns a marketing company that makes websites and manages websites. But our favorite thing to do is to hand off a website to a fully trained customer that feels such a deep sense of ownership over their website. If you don't feel that deep sense of ownership, you're not going to have a successful website experience. If you're doing a wholesale, it's also really helpful, if not vital, to have a private back end so that your retailers can log into your site. Now, have we had a hard time getting the jewelry industry to use B2B digital tools? Yes, we have. But this is one of the areas in which everything's about to change. I've been running a virtual company since 2007 now. And since 2007, I've been saying to people, oh, do you want to do a video call or a phone call? And invariably, it was phone call. Very few people were comfortable with doing a video call. Suddenly, everybody's comfortable with doing a video call. Everybody's doing B2B transactions. So if you are used to jumping up and running to Office Max for your office supplies, now people are realizing, oh, they need to order their office supplies online. They're ordering everything online. And once people get comfortable with using these digital tools, they tend to not go back. So right now, you need to get your digital tools in order for your wholesale clients as well. And that means not only a private back end that they can log into and see their own price levels, but also the ability to send out orders that they either pay for with a credit card, or if you extend credit to them, the ability to produce a purchase order. So those are some things that your website has to do for you in order to be effective. So what brings people to your website? For the younger people in our audience, you may not remember the movie Field of Dreams, but the big catch line from that movie was, if you build it, they will come. And in fact, that is only true for Kevin Costner. Building a website is absolutely no guarantee of traffic. You need a website, and you need a website that works really well for you, but it will not get you traffic. There's so much noise on the internet now, and that noise is growing exponentially by the day right now. Again, to levels that are going to be sustained. There might be a slight slacking off after everybody gets to go back to work, but it won't be much because people have recognized that there is a simplicity to doing business this way and it saves them time. And they're going to incorporate all these new digital skills into their next generation of behavior. So what do you need to bring people to your site? Well, you need organic SEO. You need a great email strategy. You need social media activity and advertising and cross-channel promotions and package stuffers. In other words, you need to do the whole marketing gambit, the marketing experience that has always existed and that large companies have always done. You can do it scaled to your business, and you can do it affordably for your business, but you need to do all of it. So the question, what is SEO? Let's talk about that right now. Oh, actually, we're going to talk about websites first, and then we're going to talk about organic SEO. So your website has to go beyond being a billboard or a brochure site. And a billboard or a brochure site is that site that has home, about, contact, and then a couple of great pictures of your product. That is completely insufficient now. Now you need a highly flexible site that you can add content to easily, that you can add pages to easily. It needs to be self-service. You don't necessarily need to build it yourself, but it needs to be something that you can add things to easily, things that work in plain English, that don't require coding to do. And I'll talk to you about some sites that do all of those things. So it's not, this is not rocket science. So you need to be able to work in your own site. If you want to have somebody that helps you with your site, fine. But what you do not want to experience is that moment like right now when suddenly people's helpers aren't available and they don't know how to update their website. It needs to have a managed cost of ownership. That means it cannot be something that's super expensive for you to maintain over time. And it has to be something you can analyze and monitor. Now let's jump to that last one. Everybody wants to know how to do Google Analytics. And I could teach you for like 3 or 4 days and not get to the depths of Google Analytics. But if you go to that link, works.me/Google Analytics for Dummies, you will find my favorite baseline Google Analytics training. And it comes from a group called Moz, M-O-Z. They do a really good job of breaking Google Analytics down. So that's something you could do with your learning time. When I wrap up the session today, I'm going to talk about the fact that one of the things you need to be doing with this time right now is learning. And that's one of the things that it would be beneficial for everybody to learn. Now, a lot of people say, well, I need to know how to design to do a website, right? Like I need better Photoshop skills. I need better Adobe Illustrator skills. Well, those are things that are fun, but they're not necessarily things you need. Well, at least I think using the Adobe products is fun, but you don't need them to design a great website. And this is really a challenging point for the jewelry designer community, particularly. I do work with other industries. I spend about 70% of my time in jewelry, and then I work in other industries. And in other industries, I do not have this experience where everybody wants to design their own website, but jewelry designers want to design their own websites. In websites, the design is about what we call UX, user experience. Web design is all about the code. It's about how it works. It's about what you can do with it. Design for websites isn't about being edgy or different or visually different than everybody else. I cannot tell you how many jewelry designers, large and small, I've worked with over the last 20 years that blew $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 on trying to design a visual experience that was different than everybody else's, and their website didn't do a damn thing for them that they couldn't have accomplished on Shopify. So it's extremely important for you to understand that it's not, the visuals have to be good. Don't get me wrong. It has to be visually pleasing. You have to have good photography. You can't have 5 different fonts. You need 1 or 2. I mean, so there are some basic graphic design rules that you need to follow. And almost every website environment that I would recommend that you use will do all those things. But you don't have to become a designer. And if you've got a good website partner, you probably should listen to what they're telling you, because It's about the user experience, how we move things across the page, where people look for things. Those are things out of the graphic design discipline. And the graphic design discipline is different than the jewelry design discipline, which is different than the fashion design discipline, which is different than the interior design discipline. So they all have their own rules, as you know very well. So don't worry about learning how to be a Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator expert. Instead, focus on choosing a website tool that's going to do the work you want it to do. So the other article, the other link that's there, that works.me/website choice. That's an article that I wrote for MJSA. They've made it available publicly right now. So we've got the text available for you on one of my sites. And it walks you through the different types of websites and why you would choose one over another. So when it comes to websites, and I'm just going to do this very briefly because we can't cover, I mean, again, websites are something we could talk about for days. But very briefly, when it comes to websites, you have a choice between the self-builder group. So the self-builder type websites would be Squarespace, Shopify, Wix, Weebly, all of those do-it-yourself websites, and they all have pros and cons. Then you have the next choice, which would be what we call CMS websites, content management system websites, and that would be WordPress and Joomla and Drupal and Magento. Though Magento is more like pure e-com, really. It's e-com with some CMS. And then there's custom, which I do not recommend for anybody. You should never buy a custom website. That's just guaranteeing you will be stuck. I'll put it back up again, Pam, in just a second. You want to see the link. So you don't want to be stuck with something that somebody has to custom design for you all the time, or you'll never be able to afford to keep up with the technology because it's changing constantly. So those are sort of your choices for websites. Custom, that's a big no. Self-builders like Shopify and Squarespace, content management systems. And then there's like the whole high end of licensed type of websites, which are very expensive, don't really have any advantages over the content management systems I just explained to you, and are usually just for very large corporations. You need to be choosing between the self-builder and the content management systems of probably WordPress or Joomla. If you have a much bigger business and you want to integrate some of your business operating tools and do some slick things on your website that help run your business, you might look at Drupal. But for you guys, I would say it's Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, or Shopify, or WordPress, or Joomla. Those are the ones you should choose from. If you are only selling product and you're selling a lot of product that changes all the time, then something like Shopify will work for you. Shopify is primarily e-commerce. If you're not producing tons of new product, if you have a high-priced product that you need to have a lot of things to say, or you're doing custom work, you really need to be looking at a WordPress or a Joomla type site. And you'll understand that better as we get into this next slide, which is going to start talking about SEO. So there's the link again, works.me/website choice. So now, hi Stephanie. So now let's get into what is SEO. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. And it's that whole discipline of if somebody going into Google or Bing, but it's mostly Google because Google is 86% of all searches. So when we talk about SEO, we follow Google's rules because guess what? So do Bing and is Yahoo even out there anymore? So do all the other search engines. Everybody follows Google's lead because they're the big monster in search. So when somebody goes to a search engine and they search for something, you want them to find a link that brings them to your site. So what is involved in getting Google to recommend your link over somebody else's? Well, first, your website has to be mobile ready, or the other term you would have heard for this is responsive. And that means no matter what device somebody uses, your website looks great on it. So if you go to your website from your mobile phone and you just see this little block of copy and a couple of boxes and you can't read them and you have to pinch and pull and rotate your phone to see your website, that is not mobile responsive. The way we've been designing sites ever since pretty much 2013, and it became an imperative as far as search was concerned in 2017 or 18. I don't remember which year now. has been that the elements on every website page reorganize themselves according to whatever device the person is using. That's what mobile ready or responsive mean. Your site must be that. Now, if you are using Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, WordPress, or Joomla, all of them are responsive as long as you've been keeping up with the latest code. Now, we have sites that we designed in WordPress and Joomla back in 2007 that responsive wasn't even an option back then. But we've never rebuilt the sites. They simply became responsive along the way because we kept updating the sites by taking the new code patches when they were released. So any of those things will give you a responsive site. If you have a custom site, if you have something that was built in Expression Engine 7 years ago and you can no longer find the developer, those things are probably not responsive. And so you need a responsive site, or Google is not going to give your links to people who, even if they're searching for the very thing that you make and sell. And that would just be a shame. In order to get Google to recommend your links to somebody over somebody else's, you also need to change the content on your website regularly. Now, we just look at that as being additive. You don't need to keep retiring content. You need to add new content all the time. So you've been hearing for years that you should be blogging, and you should be blogging, but I don't think people understand the reason why they're supposed to be blogging. I hear all the time, oh, nobody reads anymore. Who wants to read all those blogs? There's too many blogs out there. That's not the point. The point is that the internet runs on words. I know we recognize the value of pictures, and pictures are important for keeping people on the page. That's going to be important bullet number 3 here. But it's not pictures that bring people to search. People don't go in and present an image and say, search for this image. They put words in a search engine. And those words in the search engine go out looking for a website that has matching words. So you need lots of words on your website to bring people to your website. You need lots of words that are relevant to your values and your strategy and your people and brand. Blogs are a great way to do that. I could care less if nobody ever read a full blog, as long as search regularly brought people to your site to then experience all the other things that they could experience. Now, if you are a company like Alibaba and you have 10,000 new products every single day, you don't need to write a blog, because all of those product descriptions are going to be this incredible wealth of recent, frequent new information to the website. If you are a major national retail chain selling jewelry, you are regularly going to have hundreds of new products. You don't need a blog. But if you're a small jewelry producer who's only bringing out several dozen products a year, or even 100 products a year, I guess that's several dozen. If you're a small design or studio producer and you're not doing thousands of new products, you need some other content to put on your blog that's going to meet Google's expectations of recent, frequent, new information. Because what the Google search engine thinks, if they've got a search and they go looking for a website that matches that search, and they hit your website and they see the content hasn't changed in 3 months, and then they see some other website whose content did change just 2 weeks ago, and either one of them would be a match for that search, they're going to give the more recent content addition to the searcher under the assumption that that business is more viable. The search engine doesn't know that you're just too busy to post something on your website. The search engine doesn't know that you only do a new collection a year. The search engine just thinks, well, if that one posted 2 weeks ago and this one posted 3 months ago, there's a really good chance the 3 months ago one is out of business. So you need regularly changing content. You need a low bounce rate. A low bounce rate. So bounce is when somebody follows a search to your website, takes a look at what the search delivered, and then goes back to the search engine and says, nope, give me another option for this search. Google tracks that. And that's called a bounce. They went to your page, they went to your site, they bounced back out. You need meaningful content. So when somebody clicks your link, they go to a page that grabs their attention. Now, not everybody that searches for something is going to be one of your people, but enough of them need to be so that the search engine is like, yeah, these links matter to some people. I'm going to keep offering these links. It's important to not have broken links. If you have a link that went to a page that you wrote 6 years ago and eventually the page got canceled, but people are still clicking that link, when you go to those pages, it's a 404 error and it's like there's nothing here. Google hates that. So you need to make sure that when you retire any pages or products, that you give a redirect link. And you can do it right in Shopify, right in WordPress, right in whatever tools you're using. You can say, I'm going to retire this product. Redirect anyone that goes to this product link to this new page instead. You don't want to redirect people to your home page unless there's no other page that is more relevant than the home page when people hit that old link. Unique content is very important. And that's, again, we go back to what are you going to focus on? You're going to figure out your core values and your strategy so you can figure out your messaging, and that's going to drive unique content. Nobody else is you. Nobody else has that unique combination of ingredients that make you interesting to your people. So once you know what those things are, you can create unique content. Then you won't be competing for keywords. If all your keywords are engagement ring, oh no, wait, let's be really unique. Let's say alternative engagement ring. The search engines are like, oh, that looks like all the other links. I'm not going to send anybody there. And then the last technical thing is site speed. If your pages don't load in 3 seconds or less, now, right now, in this moment, so many people have moved home to work that the bandwidth of the internet is divided up between a couple of different providers like AT&T and Verizon. And then within their pipe, they allocate according to business allocation and personal allocation. Well, the whole country's using the personal allocations now. Everything is slow. They'll get some pipe reallocated, and then eventually we'll all go back to work. But so right now everything's loading slow, but on a normal basis, your pages need to load in 3 seconds or less. If people send you email, and they will, saying, oh, I could improve your SEO, pay me $800 a month. The vast majority of those are a scam. They're going to tell you there are all kinds of things wrong with your website. Go back to this list. This list is the beating heart of SEO. It's the most important SEO that you need to know. And if you get everything on this list right, then you don't need somebody to charge you to do SEO work for you. There is a whole other level of SEO that's about link building and backlinks, and you don't honestly need to know that right now. You just need to get this list right. Now let's talk about email, because you really need to do a good job with your email. Now there's you can have an email system like a MailChimp or a Constant Contact, or you can have a CRM marketing automation type system. We'll talk more about what the differences are in the next slide. But you need email. Email is still the highest ROI of all the digital marketing channels. If you have a hard time deciding what email to write, then get a tool like CopyDyno. And that link is right there, copydyno.com. That will actually help you through some of your writing blockage. Again, it all goes back to your core values and your strategy. If you know who you are and what you do that makes you different and why you matter and what messages you therefore want to be sharing with your customers, you will know the content of what you want to write about. And trust me, you are interesting to your people. You don't need to be interesting to everybody, but you're very interesting to your people. So don't question that. You should probably be sending out an email once a week. And I know that a lot of people think that's too frequent, but it's quite important to be communicating with your audience. And you should be segmenting your email into different lists. Not all of your buyers are the same. They're not all interested in the same things. So some designers will break up their list by product categories. Some people, for instance, you have some customers that are interested in custom and other customers that are more interested in whatever's ready made for them to buy. You have some customers who maybe are bridal customers and other customers that are fashion. I don't know what your categories are. I just know that if you have your customers aligned in the lists related to the things that are most interesting to them, and then you write from your core values and your strategy, one email a week is not too much. And you don't even need to email every list every week. You just need to email once a week so that you've got a constant source of new potential business being generated. Now, some people ask, well, how do I know if I should choose MailChimp or Constant Contact or, I don't know, my Emma is still out there. Those are interchangeable. MailChimp, Constant Contact, no meaningful difference between them. There is a difference between those tools and what we call marketing automation, which is Greenrope, HubSpot, SharpSpring, Infusionsoft, Salesforce.com. This slide, I'm not going to walk you through it in detail right now because we just don't have time, but the difference between an email system and a marketing automation system is those yellow boxes. MailChimp and Constant Contact and any of the email systems will do what's in the orange boxes. And a CRM marketing automation system will do the orange boxes plus all the rest. What I would recommend is that you get good at sending out emails and learning how to think about how your customers are segmented in lists. And then once you're good at that, think about how you might take it to the next level. But you can do baby steps. You can start with a MailChimp account, work on your email strategy and your list building. And then when you've got that master, you can convert those lists into something like Greenrope or HubSpot and keep going from there. Social media activity. If you are only posting pretty pictures of only jewelry, some on white backgrounds, some on something more interesting like a log or a leaf, then you're not doing your social media right. Because first, you need everything, or at least not everything. Everything's the wrong word. You need a lot of what you post on social media to have a link back to your website. Either the link, so somebody sees the piece of jewelry and they click the link and it takes them to the product page, or it takes them to the category page, or it takes them to a landing page. A landing page is a special page that you can create on your website just for a certain promotion, or it takes them to your blog post. But you want many of your social media links to bring people back to your website. Otherwise, you're not cultivating that customer. When you get them to your website, you need to do your darndest to collect an email address. Now, that's a numbers game. Only a small percentage of people who visit your website will give you an email address. But if you can get them to come back to your website often enough, you increase the odds of collecting that email address. On Instagram, it's hard to do links because you can only do the one primary link in your bio page. But you can use a tool like Shoreby.com, that could be a page of links that you change all the time. So your bio link would bring them to Shoreby, and Shoreby would have, maybe you have a promotion for 3 products this week. So on your Shoreby page, you're then showing them the 3 products that you're promoting this week, and they can click that link straight to your website. So that's one way to get around the link challenge in Instagram. You can also put a link right on your picture. You notice that I was using these links that start with works.me. You can use that's called a short link. So just write down the word short link and look up short links later. You can use a tool like Jot URL. That's J-O-T, like jotting a note, joturl.com. You can make your own short links, and you can even brand your short links. So I have a client called VDB, and their website is vdbapp.com. That's not short, but they have vdb.guru for all their short links. I use works.me. So anyway, look up short links because we don't have time to go into all that right now either. In your social media, if you're not having conversations with your customers, if you're not responding to their comments and just engaging, then you're not going to be getting the full value out of your social media. Now's a really good time to practice that. You also need to switch it up. It shouldn't just be images, and those images should not just be product. You also need text posts and video posts. And the reason for that is all of the social media channels preference content according to what the users of those contents like. So if somebody only ever clicks on a post with a picture, then eventually the social media engine only shows them posts with pictures. If people only respond to posts that have text and like some meaningful text, then eventually they don't see your picture posts. They only see your text posts. Same thing for video. You need to have a nice mix of those content types to make sure that people are responding to at least one of them. And you actually need to get personal with people on social media. It's called social for a reason. So you don't have to tell people, what your children's and grandchildren's names are and where everybody lives, but you need to let some of your personal self out. If you don't, then they don't make a meaningful connection with you. So that's what you need to be doing for social media activity, but very important. Make sure many of your posts have a link back to your website. Advertising. First of all, if you don't know how to measure your advertising, don't even spend money on it. Honestly, if you do these social media or SEO things up here, If you have a website that's responsive and you do all these SEO things, that's going to be the most powerful thing you can do to bring traffic to your website. Banner strategies aren't great for small producers. Most banner strategies, if you went and bought banners online, you're going to end up having your product shown to an awful lot of people that are unqualified to buy it. I'm not a fan of banner strategies for small producers. Also, do not play the Google Ads game if you're not fully SEO optimized. So back to this list. If you haven't done all of this and done it well, then every penny that you spend on Google AdWords is wasted. Don't do that. Get your website right first. Landing pages is something that I would like everybody to understand much better. If you just run ads or just run links and you run people back to your home page every time, that's showing them the broadest possible version of you. And the broadest possible version isn't always the most exciting version. It might be exciting to you because you're like, oh, here's the picture of who my company is. Landing pages are designed so that you can run a promotion or focus on something for a couple of weeks, and you actually bring them to a page that was just designed to talk about that promotion. And that is also designed to motivate people to give you an email address so you can do your email marketing, which is the highest ROI of all digital marketing. So landing pages are something you should write down right now that you're going to investigate and learn more about during what is downtime for a lot of people right now. Cross-channel and package stuffers. So cross-channel promotions are when you make sure that your social media is pointing people back to your website, that your website is pointing people to your retail clients or to your pop-up store or to an event you're going to be exhibiting at, that your email is tying to social media and the website. You need to look at all of these channels as part of a whole, and that whole is your business and how you are expressing your core values and your strategy. So the more you tie all of your different channels together, the more powerful draw you're going to have to bring people to your business. And as long as your messaging has been thought through, because you thought about your core values and your strategy, then you're going to do a much better job of being a consistent and therefore memorable presence to your customers and your potential customers. The other thing you need are package stuffers. Package stuffers is a term that we used back in the late 70s, and well, we used it all the way through the 80s in the direct marketing world. So I used to be with Spiegel. Not a single, and then I was with other direct marketing companies, but at Spiegel, we did an amazing job on package stuffers. We made sure that every box went out, not only with the most current catalog, but with lots of yummy little handouts that made people want to buy again. You need to make sure that every time a piece of your jewelry sells, it goes with the right elements, the right paper elements to motivate somebody to call you right away and to remember who you are. Moo.com is one of my favorite places to go for those things right now. Moo, just like the cow.com. Great business card solution, but also a great solution for postcards and stickers and all of the other things that can help you stick in the mind, pardon the pun, of the person who just bought your jewelry. Those are all ways, and your website should always be on every one of these things. So those are all the ways that you bring people to your website. So for online prospecting, I like people to understand the difference between where you sell and where you prospect. The vast majority of jewelry sellers, unless you're Marla Aaron, don't sell on social media. You prospect on social media. You look for new customers on social media, then you bring them to your website and your email, and you get an email address, and using email and bringing them back to the website regularly, you convert them to buyers. Social media is for prospecting. And if you know the difference, then you treat your social media a little bit differently. Now, if you are going to advertise on Facebook and LinkedIn, which are LinkedIn if you're selling to retail store owners, not so much for selling to consumers, but if you're going to sell on Facebook and Instagram, and LinkedIn, this is true of LinkedIn as well, you can actually upload your own list and make sure that all the advertising you pay for through those channels goes to the people on your list. So you have a list, Facebook, LinkedIn, they look at and Facebook, of course, owns Instagram. They look at your list and they say, is there a member on this channel that has this email address? So even if they don't follow your page on that social channel, if you upload the list, you can market to the list. And that helps you target. So then you're much more likely to hit your people. I already talked about advertising to a landing page, and I already talked about capturing email addresses. So I'm trying to reinforce how important it is to get out there and prospect and bring people back to a functioning website and capture an email address so you can email market to them. Online meetings. So you're all doing online meetings right now, and that's great because guess what? It's an amazing selling tool. We all know how expensive trade events are. We all know that our best retail events, if you sell work at a retail show or a fair, they don't happen often enough to keep you happy. Unless you happen to do the Grand Central one every Christmas, and that's just freaking exhausting. So, but you can sell through online meetings, and now everybody knows how to use online meetings because we all have to do them. So use this as a way to connect with your customers. Make sure that your online meeting system is easy to access, as easy as it was for you to dial into this webinar. Make sure you can get online meeting systems that are always on. So you can have office hours, and when you're at your desk, you turn on your online meeting system, and people can knock on your virtual door. For designers, it's very useful to do a dual camera online meeting system. That way, you can have one camera pointed at your desk or benchtop, and one camera pointed at your face, and you can show people jewelry right online. It's a great way to do custom work. It's a great way to sell already made work. It's a great way to work with your customers remotely. And then you can expand the customers you can deal with. Zoom is an option for this. Teams 365, which is Microsoft Teams, is good, but it has some limitations. It's not always easy for people to join. GoToMeeting is very good, but it's expensive. What I'd like you to look at is Vectera. Vectera is the one I use for my company. We love it. I use Teams 365. I use GoToMeeting. I use Zoom. So I use all of them. So I'm telling you, Vectera is as good as any of them, and it's incredibly affordable. And until June 1st, it's completely free. So you could get on there and try all of the tools and see if you like it. So use online meetings for your selling because that is the future. So right now, what is it time for you to do? Well, first, it's time to do check-in calls with your customers and watch your tone. People are stressed out right now. It's not time to call and say, hey, I was thinking maybe I could sell you something. But it is okay to check in on people and see how they're doing. Tell them you're thinking about them. Make that brand connection. Very big companies are doing this. I've got companies that I deal with. I had somebody from GoDaddy check in on me the other day. And I mean, that's a really big company. And yeah, we're a good customer, but I was surprised to just get this whole, everybody in the country is kind of freaked out right now. We just wanted to check in on our best customers, make sure you were fine. If really big companies can do it, so can you. Nordstrom's checked in on us the other day too. And again, there was no push. There was no check our email. It was just checking on you. Positive, entertaining social media. It's very important everybody's on social media playing right now. Now the curve is going to kind of shift. It's interesting because I've been in this, we just shut down in the US 2 weeks ago, but we shut down in Italy 4 weeks ago. And I'm the managing director for a company in Northern Italy. So I've been dealing with this issue with all of my employees there for many weeks. And it's a really, on a personal level and also on a business level, there's a strange curve to it. So at first, everybody dives onto social media and they're all sharing everything and everybody's excited about meeting online. And then like next week or the week after, it's going to start getting really quiet. So pay attention to the vibe on social media and don't be tone deaf right now. Just pay close attention to your people and what they're doing. But it is a good time for positive, entertaining social media. It's time for learning. We've talked about that several times in this session. It's time for design. Now, again, you don't need to become a graphic designer. It's time for you to work on your design, which in the normal course of things, you probably don't have as much time for as you would like. So it is time for you to work on design. It's time to improve your website, and it's time to clean up your shop. And by cleaning up your shop, I mean making sure that you don't have a bunch of inventory that you're not going to be able to use, melt things that you can get some money for. Don't worry about the gold curve right now. It's going to go up, down, up, down, up, down for another several weeks, if not a couple of months. Just get the cash for it. Figure out what you're going to do with those gemstones that you've been buying from Tucson every year and still haven't designed something into. And those are things that you should be doing right now. And again, the time to learn, it's business skills, it's that accounting for managers class, it's mastering your social media and your website, And it's also time to practice your jewelry production skills. We all have certain jewelry production skills we'd like to be better at. So maybe you need to work on some stone setting skills. Maybe it's time to do some practice with your finish work. Maybe it's your jewelry technology, but it's a great time to invest in your production skills. And then let's talk about self-management. It's really important to take care of yourself right now. Everybody is feeling tremendous anxiety, and there's no sense of when this anxiety ends. We could live with this for quite a while. So do take care of yourself. Do the things that keep you healthy. Set a schedule for work every day. Get up and stick to it, even if that just means walking to the next room to be at work. Get dressed. Put your makeup on, put your jewelry on, brush your beard for God's sake, but get up and get dressed and feel like you're ready for the day, because that actually puts you in a better frame of mind. And then create a list. Try to do, we did this as a team activity with my Italian team a couple of weeks ago. We created a list of, well, everyone did it individually, and then we shared highlights of 100 things that we would like to know or do if we had the time to do it that did not involve leaving home. And believe it or not, everybody was be able to create a big list once they created it. Keep your mind engaged. There is a temptation while you're locked up at home to do nothing but work. I quickly found out with my Italian team that they were working like 15, 16 hours a day because they were home and they weren't sure what else to do with themselves. They felt so out of their own normalness, if that's a word. Don't let that happen either. Do your work hours and then work on the list of 100 things that you want to do or get better at or invest in, because that will help you with the self-care part of this experience. And it keeps your mind busy at a time when it's not normal anxiety, it's abnormal and global anxiety. So those are some important self-care things to do. And I think that's it. That's what I had to share with you today. And I know I went a little over, but I'm happy to stick around and do questions for as long as you want. So that was a big overview, not a small one, but these are all the things that I think it's important for you to focus on. So while you guys are starting to put your questions in the chat box, which I hope you will do, and I'm keeping an eye on, somebody asked, what about China? What's going to happen with China manufacturing? We will still continue to have some centers of manufacturing in China. The big manufacturers are going to finally do something that we've been trying to get everybody to do for 20 years and they haven't, which is diversify. Too many manufacturers had all of their eggs in the China basket, and that they started seeing the problem with that when the tariffs kicked in. And then, of course, with COVID-19, it just became a giant nightmare. So we will see more diversification of manufacturing. Now, that will mean some of that manufacturing comes home. That will mean that some of that manufacturing goes to other countries like Vietnam, Thailand, India, Turkey, just depending on the kind of production that you do. So there will still be strong manufacturing in China, but I don't think we'll be as concentrated there. And I think that will be true for other industries as well. With a caveat, we are really good, not just as an industry, but as a people, at getting through a crisis and then going, phew, glad that's over. And then we don't learn the lessons. We don't practice the new behaviors that are going to set us up for the next crisis. So I'm not a downer, but I want you to know there is always going to be another crisis. Please don't forget these things. Please be ready for the next one, because there will be one. So that's my answer on China. Bye, Pam. Wish you well too. As far as someone that is starting a new business, design and production, do you think this is a good time to start? Sure, why the hell not? It's always a good time to start. Look, somebody always makes money during a depression. Somebody always makes money during a crisis. It might as well be you, right? So if you have decided this is what you were going to do, you probably weren't going to make a lot of money in the first few months anyway. If you're ready, do the things I'm talking to you about, get more ready and go. There is life after COVID-19. Do I think that there are a lot of small support groups in our industry? They seem to be everywhere. I know there are a lot of maker groups, like Gary Dawson has has his jewelry group, and Jurgen has a group, and some people chat in some of the MJSA circles. Yeah, there do seem to be a lot of small support groups. We've certainly tried starting support groups, and sometimes they build a community and sometimes they don't. So I don't know, Dana, whether or not there are enough small support groups, or if there are enough people that actually want small support groups. But I think that's what all these little clubs and associations and organizations are about. But if I'm not understanding the question, please clarify. Okay, so Olivia's wondering if it's advisable to sell things at multiple different price points. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Olivia. Can you clarify a little bit? And there's like several ways I could answer at different price points for different metals of the same item, or, but I'm not sure exactly how you're trying to apply that. Sorry, I'm not looking at you. I'm actually looking down at your questions. I'm getting stuffy too. I think it's allergy season finally, because they're hitting me like crazy. Oh, yeah, for a silver line and also for fine jewelry, absolutely. I think that's totally fine to say, here's this design. You can have it in silver, you can have it in 18 karat, for instance. And then having rational price points for both. It will be very helpful for you guys to have some alternative material types available to you. I think I once again invite you to join us for that How Crises Changes Design conversation. In World War II, there was a huge shift into silver. Now, partly it was because silver wasn't rationed, but people tend to shift price points. They all downshifted price points in the recession between 2007 and 10. So it is very helpful, and it's totally fine to have multiple price points in that regard. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Barbara. That's very sweet of you. Michael, you have the sniffles too? Michael, email me and tell me you're going to do that panel with me, because I'm waiting to hear from you. Okay, I don't remember if you talked about this last time, but the millennials seem to want just tiny jewelry. What do I think? They do. They like, the millennials tend to be a lot more minimal in their approach. Remember, they were profoundly influenced by 9/11. And now we have a generation that's going to be profoundly influenced by COVID-19, and it does have an impact on the things they care about and buy. But what do I think the future of other types of jewelry styles will be? Well, we always, and again, I really can't wait. I mean, I'm so excited about this panel on how a jewelry history, because I'm going to learn a lot and I get to like ask them questions. So do you. But there are big trends over time toward minimalism, larger scale. And then there are these seasonal trends that tend to be influenced by fashion. And then there are sort of minor trends, like the recession of 2007 to 10. Things got kind of dark and monotone at the beginning. And then when everybody was just over it and wanted to feel better, things got very colorful again. And that affects scale as well. So I'm not a real good one for predicting what the future is going to be. I know I'm working on some research on that right now to see what we think is going to happen in the next year or two. And I haven't done enough research to be able to speak to it intelligently. But so I can't answer your question articulately, clearly, Judith, but what I can tell you is it is going to change, and you do need to pay attention, but you always need to interpret these things in your own design language. And your design language, I know I'm getting redundant here, goes back to your core values and your strategy and your messages. And then there will be some people that never interpret new trends according to their design language, because their design language won't speak to that trend. And that's okay too. Just go find your people, and then you can keep producing in your design language. Let's see. Oh, good. Thank you, Michael. I will reach out to you then so we can plan that panel. So alternative materials means to me lower price point. Is there a sweet spot for custom jewelers? No, there's really not a sweet spot for custom jewelers. Well, there is a sweet spot. It's the spot at which you actually make money. So you can't do custom jewelry and only make keystone on it. That's not enough of a margin. Your custom work needs to be a higher margin. People are not paying for the materials. I don't care if you design in felt. If you design in felt, but you're making someone a gorgeous piece of custom art, they need to pay for it. It's not about the material. So you can have lots of different price points and materials. Just make sure you make enough money on them to pay for the time you put into it. And when people buy custom work, that's if they want something cheap and well, if they want something low price, they need to go to a chain store that has lots of stuff that was produced on a production line. So charge the right amount for your custom work. Let's see. I see typing. I'm looking for your next questions. How do you blog on multi-ideas? Okay, Janice, I need a little clarification again to know what you mean by multi-ideas. I'm conscious of the fact that I might have my own interpretation of what you're asking, and then I may answer absolutely the wrong question. Oh, good, Mindy. I'm glad you liked it. Is it right to sell on Amazon? Okay, that part about core values, first you need to go back to your core values. And you always, if you do everything from your core values and your core meaning, then you will always make the right decision. Is it right? So there's so many different ways to answer that. Can you sell high quality custom jewelry work on Amazon? Yes, you can. There is an audience out there for it. Now, selling on Amazon is not easy. Lots of people think, oh, I got my stuff listed on Amazon, therefore I'm selling on Amazon, and then nothing sells. Amazon is its own ecosystem. There are rules for how you sell on Amazon. And if you don't set it up properly, I mean, your stuff will be listed, but nobody will buy anything. So if you think your people are on Amazon, if you think that your people will pay the right price for your product if they find it on Amazon relative to finding it on your website, if you are comfortable with the Amazon ecosystem, if all of those things are yes, then absolutely, it's right to sell on Amazon. Oh, very cool, Barbara. I'd love to hear from you. Could a blog be just a short paragraph with maybe an inspirational picture, not necessarily jewelry? Yes, it could, Dana. So for your blogging, blog about what's important to you. Remember, if somebody just wants a halo ring, then they're going to go to a retailer and just buy a halo ring, right? If they want something that's designed, they're not just buying the jewelry, they're buying part of the designer's vision and the designer's passion. So whatever it is that turns you on, that makes you tap into your creative source, that's interesting to people. So by all means, do those things. Just make sure that you have words in your blog posts, not just pictures, because people search by words. And make sure that your pictures have something that's called an alternative text. And that's available in all the website types. Nobody searches for A2FG3.jpg. They search for blue flowers. They search for a trillion ruby with sapphires. They search for specific words. So your pictures actually have to have alt text that describes what is in that picture. But yes, your blog can be lots of short little posts. It can be your designer diary. Just make and talk about what you're making or what you're designing or what your design struggles are or what inspires you. That's going to be different for every designer as long as you go back and do it from your core values and your strategy, and therefore it will be interesting to your people. And don't worry if there are 1,000 other designer blogs out there. They're not you. They don't have your secret sauce that makes you you. So your blog will be inherently different. Kathleen, I agree. So Kathleen's saying with all this online video chatting, I think we'll see a lot of necklaces and earrings and maybe larger pieces. That's probably true. And you think a lot more. Like these are like funny little Southwestern earrings, but they were my mom's favorite earrings, and she died in October. And so I woke up this morning and I just felt really close to her, and that's what went on. And now I'm seeing them all day long. Before I was doing video all day, every day, I get dressed, I look in the mirror, and that's the last time I look in a mirror all day. So now we're not only wearing earrings for other people, we're actually seeing our own earrings. In the past, oh my God, I don't even have my wedding ring on today. I woke up feeling puffy. So anyway, but in the past, I really just focused on bracelets and rings because that's what I saw. That's what made me happy. But you're right, necklaces and earrings are definitely going to have a different appeal. What social media platform is the best place to blog? Well, Celia, you don't really want to blog on social media. though I do a lot of blabbing on Facebook and LinkedIn, but you want to blog on your website because you want those words to bring people back to your website. And then you want to share the links to those blog posts to each of the social media environments. So like this morning, I wrote a blog on how important it is to create to value humans equally in the workplace in order to have true creativity. Then, so I blogged on my blog site about that. Then I shared a link of it to Facebook, and to the Facebook community, I had one set of words saying, hey, this is something I blogged on today, blah, blah, blah. I did a different blah, blah, blah on LinkedIn with a link to that blog post. I did another very different blah, blah, blah to Twitter with a link to that blog post. So you want to blog on your own website and you want to share that link to each of the different social media channels that you live on. And let me know, Celia, if I answered that question or if I went off on a tangent. Yeah, Dana, the alternative text thing is the thing a lot of people don't get. It's just not, you don't know it until you know it, I guess. Okay, good. I'm glad. I hope you guys are watching chat with me. Otherwise, you're going to think I'm just like very random. What do I think of inventory on sites like Poshmark? Okay, so the sites that charge you to sell inventory, I haven't looked at Poshmark in ages. I'm actually tempted to open it up right now. Be very careful. They don't necessarily produce for designers. And many designers end up spending a lot of money to show their stuff and it doesn't convert into sales. So any site that's going to charge you to be on the site, do not treat it as a sales outlet. Treat it as an advertising outlet. And then look at it the same way you would all your other advertising and say, would I spend my advertising dollars here or here? But if they are charging you to show your product, that's advertising, not selling. I'm just watching the chat box. I see more typing happening. Oh, yay, I still have tea. This is my favorite new thing. It's my David's tea press. So I can put my loose tea in it and then brew it in here and then it stays hot and I just pour it into my cup as I remember it. Thanks, Celia. This is the part in the replay where it's like, I watch the replay before we send it out and I'm like, that's really quiet. Do I think Pinterest can be a useful tool for new designers? And if so, how would I recommend using it to get the most out of it? I do still like Pinterest. You know, social media has a tendency to pick up its trends, right? And so everybody, you know, first it was Facebook and then, oh, Facebook is dead. Now they're on Twitter, or Twitter and Facebook actually came up at the same time, but that's another discussion. Then it was Instagram. Oh, only Instagram is good. Facebook is stupid. And then it was, oh no, let's go to TikTok and oh my God, I'm blanking on the words, the yellow one, Snapchat. They're all still relevant and they all have audiences. So if your people are on Pinterest, then by all means, use Pinterest. It's a totally viable channel. Pinterest is to today's women what the ladies' magazines of the 50s, 60s, and 70s were. It's McCall's. It's the idea book. It's the place to save your recipe. It's the place to collect your clothing ideas. And it is not just for older women. Younger women use Pinterest as well. My daughter's 35 and she lives in Pinterest for all of her projects. Pinterest is a great environment. Use it to create stories of pictures. That's a really helpful way to use Pinterest. Always be introducing new content to Pinterest. If you're just sharing other people's pins, you don't get the same value out of it, but share your own fresh content to Pinterest. Pinterest will give it more airtime that way with links back to your website. So another great place to share links from blogs. The replay will be emailed to you. And yes, please do post the link on the JDPN page. That's fine. It'll be a public link. It looks like the typing has died down. So, oh, nope, some more of you are typing. I'll just wait and see if there's any more questions. You're all quite welcome. It's fun information to share. I'm sorry it feels like such a fire hose sometimes, but I do believe that if you know what's possible, then you can go out and find the pieces that you need to put them all together. If you don't know a term exists or a technology exists or an idea exists, then you don't even think of going to look for it. So you'll have the slides, you'll have the video, and now you have some concepts to work with, and I think that'll help you. Yes, you will. Everyone from both sessions will receive the video link and slides from both sessions, not just the one they attended. All right. Well, it looks like we're a wrap then. Thank you all so much for attending. I know right now we're all just kind of sitting at home, but it's not like you don't have anything else to do. I do appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm glad to see that it was helpful to you. If there was something that you wish you had gotten out of it that you didn't, please send me a note. You'll also get a link to an assessment. So, and it's just a couple of clicks, but it gives me some feedback to know what I can do better for next time. So thanks everybody for attending and for all of your questions, and just take good care of yourselves. Okay. If you don't do anything else in the replay or the slides, go back to the self-care link and do those things. They have really helped us with what is now going on. Let's see how many weeks. We're going on 6 weeks of general isolation in Italy. I mean, we didn't get to a full lockdown until later, but everybody was working from home a lot sooner. So I know that those things can help you, and it's really important to take good care of yourselves right now. So I will see you soon, hopefully in person. All right, take care. Bye-bye.